Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Truth or Demons podcast. I'm your host, Stevi, and today I'm back with another interview. With all the recent happenings in the paranormal universe, there's been loads of discussions as well. And over the last week, I was on a few different shows. First, I joined Chris and Patricia over at Believe This podcast. Then I was on Reality Overload podcast with John and special guest host Chris T, and I got to speak with Brandon briefly as he popped in during what sounded like a really fun and fruitful investigation that I can't wait to hear about. And then I was on the show, The Shadow Initiative with Stephen Lancaster and Rick Hale. I had the absolute best time on all these shows, you guys. We had such amazing conversations and discussions. I will link every one of these awesome shows in the notes and down below for you to go check out and enjoy as well. And please give them a sub or a follow and some stars if you're listening on Spotify. So, since I was on so many great shows, I was inspired to invite a few of these hosts onto my show. Starting with Chris from Believe This podcast. He co-hosts with an amazing and talented woman named Patricia Ray, and I had the best time on their show. Now, I only asked Chris on because of the two of them. Chris is more into the creepy talk than Patricia, and I thought she might appreciate not partaking this time. But it was so lovely to meet and chat with you, Patricia. Thank you for the great conversation and the guest spot on the show. Okay, I won't keep you any longer. Please enjoy the interview. Hello, welcome. If you would, please tell the listeners a little bit about yourself.
All right, well, I'm Chris Krim. I've been on social media for like 14, 15 years. I am 50 years old. I am a failed entertainer. I haven't really succeeded in the art. I've been so focused on paying bills and having real jobs that I haven't been able to really pursue my dream. I use podcasting as an outlet for my creativity. I did a podcast previously called Come Get Some, SUM, and it was about getting to the sum of all things, where it started with some celebrities and voice actors, and ended up doing a exposing of Scientology type show. And I was telling all the same stories and some more that were being told on Leah Remini in the Aftermath. I had a lot of the same people on because my journey was about finding out if it's real, what's true, if the things they say are happening. And by and large, the saying goes, and it's true, it's always worse than what you think.
Yeah.
That ran its course for me. I got to the point to where I felt like I don't know if I'm doing more harm than good. My audio quality needed major upgrades, and I was like, well, I don't know if I'm hurting people or helping people, so let me just back away for a minute. Also, it's a wild community, the ex-Scientology community. I am not an ex-Scientologist, but as wild as they are, they're worth fighting for, like everybody else. So I really always wish them the best, and I still stand with them against abusive cults. Talk to a lot of people about abusive relationships, sexual assault, rape, things like that. And then I got really, really complacent for years. And decided I wanted to do another podcast, and I reached out to Patricia Ray, who is a working actress, SAG-carrying working actress, which is weird that you ask me on your show. But she is the most underrated, greatest face actress in the world, and she agreed to be my partner because she's always wanted to podcast. And we decided to do a kind of a current events, somewhat political thing where we have opposing views a lot of the time, but regardless, we're able to talk them out, not always agree, and still not hate each other. And that was kind of the whole idea. Yeah.
I've been listening to a couple of your episodes, and I love how you guys can disagree and have the differing opinions and still get through the conversation without having any blow-ups, not getting mad at each other, not unfriending each other like you said how people are doing. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, it feels good to do that. I don't know if it's working. I feel like there is a bit of a divide in the listenership where there's people who don't want to listen because they don't want me to be okay with some things she says, and they don't want her to be okay with some things I say, and that kind of defeats the purpose. But all we can do is try and do our best. I don't want to do a podcast just for the sake of entertainment, just to have fun. Although that's a big part of it, I want there to be a purpose to everything that we do.
Yeah, I understand that and completely agree. And the fact that you'll have listeners that want you to side with them or not side with them or whatever, that will weed out your listenership to where you'll have people that think like you and can be open-minded even if they disagree with what you say. So that's my goal, is to have listeners that are open-minded and can take in what's said even if they don't agree.
Right. Absolutely. I'm sure there's people who hate that you're exposing the Warrens, but also understand that the truth is the truth, and they want to get whatever real information they can. I think there's a
Exactly.
value there.
And yeah, I agree. And sometimes, occasionally, I'll have a guest that has something amazing to say about the Warrens that will reinforce people's beliefs that they were good-hearted people really trying to help people. So it's really cool to see both sides of that because, like Patricia said on your show when I was a guest, things can be, there can be more than one thing happening at the same time. It can be both. So I think that was really cool that she said that. So, how did you find my podcast?
I was bored. Sorry, sorry about that. No, I don't mean it that way.
No. Bored leads to great things.
I come home from work. It does. I came home from work late one night, and I just turned on YouTube, and I said, I'm going to put on some background noise while I play poker on VR. So I played I looked at the videos, and I saw Truth or Demons host talks about the Warrens or something, reveals the truth about the Warrens, and it was Side Eye Guy. So I've seen him in a couple things. His mask is unmistakable. And I was like, well, let's play that. And I played it, and I played a poker tournament online, and I heard bits and pieces, but I didn't really hear it. So I put the headset down, and I actually played his podcast again, his interview with you, to hear what you guys had to say. And I was like, this is really interesting. So I went and I found your show on YouTube, and I watched it, the first episode about Annabelle. And then I listened to the next one. And then I asked you on the podcast. You said yes. And I said, okay, let me hear some more of what she has to say. And it was really funny because I was preparing for the podcast going, question number 1, what inspires you to go after the Warrens? And do you believe in the paranormal? And in episode 2, you say, oh, I got so wrapped up in the Warrens, I forgot to tell you. I believe in the paranormal, all these things. So, and then I just kept listening. I couldn't stop listening. It's good stuff. I have seen in recent weeks a lot of big, well-known YouTube channels with big followings covering the Warrens all of a sudden. Now, some of them were doing it before you. Some are doing it just now. Here's the difference, listeners who are just tuning in for the first time, so you know. When, I won't say names, but when so-and-so, great podcaster, great YouTuber with great following, tells you about the Warrens, they just tell you matter of fact. The Warrens lied. The Warrens made up stories. The Warrens couldn't get their story straight. Well, the ones that are exposing the Warrens, they tell you straight, this is what the Warrens lied about. When you do it, here's my receipts. This is how I found the information. This is what I did. That's invaluable. Everyone else is just pulling from people like yourself who've done the research. You're doing the work.
Right. And that's how one of my pet peeves about that is like, it's fine to take in what you're watching, but if you're going to reiterate the information, it is your job, I believe, as someone who puts out content, especially if you're trying to make it realistic or tell the truth. It's important that you do the research on what you see, because just like any platform, something will come across your feed and someone could have made that up, very easily could have made that up. Or the person you're watching took their information from the previous person they watched and their information was also wrong. So it's important, I think, to cover all of that, to show how things have changed over time. We play the telephone game with stories. Things change every time somebody tells the story. So I like to make sure that people see that. So, because when you come to my show and you're like, okay, I want to learn about the Warrens and I want to learn about this story and the real involvement, I want you to be able to understand that the reason I'm telling it the way I'm telling it, exposing it, quote unquote, is because there's so much that people have said. And so it's really hard to sift through and find what's real and what's unreal. And a lot of people still disagree. Even if you have proof, or even if you have someone saying, I was there, I witnessed it, some people still won't take that. So it's important, I think.
Everything.
Yeah, exactly. So if you don't have all your bases covered, you're just reiterating the telephone game. You're constantly saying, this happened because I saw it. And then the next person, this happened because they saw it. So I saw it. You have to do the research. You have to look as deep as you can, because even I still find things like I'm doing part twos to pretty much everything because someone came forward and told me something, or I found a website I didn't find before, or stuff like that. So it's never ending work.
That's good because a lot of people feel like they don't have to do that. You make that effort. I think sourcing is important. Important. If you came on and told me everything wrong with the Warrens and just did the little faces and said, "Sounds like BS to me, Ed," I'd think you were just some cocky podcaster on YouTube. But you
Right. And I
source
had an
everything.
opinion, a soapbox I stood on.
Right. Exactly.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. And I appreciate you coming to my show from Seg's show. I love that guy. He's so much fun to work with. So my next question would be, what is your opinion on the Warrens and the way they've been portrayed in the movies?
Um, it's funny because maybe I watched the movies different than other people did. Even though the Warrens are featured in every movie, I've never felt like almost like in real life. I've almost felt like their existence in the story was never really the most present. Like
Mhm.
they're bit characters in a bigger story. And
Yeah.
you know, although Hollywood's writing it that way, that's also kind of how it sounds like it played out in recorded history.
Yeah. And I think you're right about that. And I think that that has a lot to do with how the movies became movies as well. They had to make sure they portrayed it in a certain way.
So as a horror creator, you're going, how can I make this movie even more compelling for viewers? Let's include the people related to the most well-documented horror haunted places in history.
Yeah.
The
And
words.
that
It's
goes
easy.
exactly. And that goes along with the surface knowledge. People don't know the depths of these stories. So if you throw in the celebrities of the time and say they had something to do with them, the stories hold so much weight all of a sudden for the viewer.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Alrighty. When do you first remember learning about the Warrens?
Oh, I mean, Amityville Horror, I think.
Yeah. I think that's a
I
lot
think
of
that had to
people's.
be. I think I heard about the Warrens on one. So we all did this. Anyone who I'm old, so maybe not all of us listening, but most of us 35 and older did this. I sat around with early cable or almost pre-cable, watching the most interesting thing on TV, which was some unsolved mystery thing about a haunting in the Warrens are mentioned, right? And then
Hmm.
I think the time that it really registered was when he said, "Oh, the Warrens investigated Amityville Horror." Oh, the Warrens did? I've heard of them. And then it just builds off of that, really.
Yeah, exactly. And
That's
what's
my
really
memory.
funny, no, that's a lot of people's memories. That's a really common answer. I remember hearing about him through Amityville as well as like TV appearances, daytime TV, because whenever I would stay home from school, I would watch daytime TV, and sometimes they'd be on there. But with the Amityville story and people saying, "Oh yeah, the Warrens, Amityville," I love that they're like, "Oh yeah, they investigated it," when in reality they didn't investigate per se. They did one night in the house with a lot of people, a news crew, some other paranormal enthusiasts, investigators, some other psychics. I think Mary Pasquarella was present, and there was another psychic as well, I believe, and then Lorraine, of
There's
course.
a name that keeps
And
coming up, too. Mary
exactly,
Pasquarella. Yeah.
yeah, I'll be talking about her in my Lindley Street episode. I got some things to say that I think people don't readily remember or even know. So I'm excited about that. But yeah, she apparently, if she wasn't there, she had other interviews because I always get this stuff confused. So if don't quote me on that, anybody. If she wasn't there, she was definitely in other interviews involved. But the point was that they did one night, the Warrens, and it wasn't their case. Like they were invited by, I believe the news crew, I think, invited them because there was some sort of, they worked or heard about something they had done and they reached out to each other, and that's how it started. So before that, they were busy. They even said themselves they were overseas and they didn't even know about the murders. So, according to the Warrens, they were very new when invited. They didn't know the history, they didn't know what was going on. So, in my opinion, they didn't investigate it. They just participated in some questioning of
Hmm.
it and with some other people.
Well, that's interesting. It's
And
funny
I
how
think it's,
questioning, or I walked in the house and felt a little uncomfortable, becomes a seance with levitation and all
yeah,
kinds of stuff
yeah.
all the time.
What's really funny is the Warrens perpetuate in their stories, and then in turn, people who tell their stories perpetuate that. they felt things. Lorraine got dizzy. She got sick. Somebody got shoved. There's all these reported happenings that apparently didn't happen because the news host and the news anchor man that was there, I can't think of his name now, but I did discuss him in the Amityville episode. He said he doesn't know what they were talking about because he didn't experience anything. So he's not sure where that came from.
Now that kind of blows my mind, right? Because this is why it's so easy to fake things, guys. Because in real paranormal experiences, there may be one person who experienced something and nobody else does. And like I criticized this woman. I talked about this on our interview about went to a haunted prison and nobody experienced anything but this one girl. And I'm like, I'm wondering if she's trying to help sell rental space of the haunted place for tours and people to hang out by playing up she's being poked in her head. But how do we know? We just
Exactly.
can't.
Yeah.
You just don't know.
And to further that, one of my biggest pet peeves in paranormal research is people definitively saying something like is a rule or if
Oh
this
God,
happens, that's how it always happens. So who made up
this is
the
very common in
notion?
demon apparitions and
Yes,
appearances. This always happens.
exactly.
Very Tony Spira thing to do.
Yes. And so who decided that? Where did these rules develop? Who confirmed them? And why did they say so? Exactly why? If you're in a group of people and only one person has having experiences that they're relaying, how do we know that's faking, or how do we know that's a symptom of paranormal activity? So it gets
Yeah,
really convoluted and confusing, and for anybody in the industry to say this is definitively an answer, I think is irresponsible, because you don't know that. The person next to you doesn't know that. We're just going by what we're being presented visually, audibly. Like, we don't know anything for sure. We're just trying to understand what's happening.
absolutely. I think that's fair. I mean, I'm with my wife at this haunted place, and if something happened to her, right now,
Mm-hmm.
now I know, right? If something happens to me, now she knows. This
Mm-hmm.
isn't somebody playing games, but
Mm-hmm.
we didn't have that opportunity to find out.
Right. That's why I liked experiencing this with my mom or people I've lived with. As long as, like, someone there that you trust, that you know wouldn't embellish this for any reason. Most of the time it's happening when you're with someone else and they experience it. They were a skeptic first. So they don't really have a tendency to lie about it, especially if they're genuinely scared. So it's nice to have that validation, even if you didn't have the experience, to know that someone you were with did. So I like that. That's really cool too.
Yes.
So, speaking of the psychic situation, do you yourself believe in psychics?
I think everything's so much more complicated than that. I
Uh-huh.
believe people have sensitivities. I believe some people have abilities. I'm not convinced that people have control over it.
I can see that.
People who say they've been through training and they've spent decades talking to their spirit guides and now they know. It sounds to me like when a priest says he talked to God, I'm like, I don't think you did. So
Yeah.
I just don't know. I don't know. I believe
Mm-hmm.
there's something to it. I think there's great embellishments,
Mm-hmm.
particularly when there's books, when
Yes.
there's TV shows, when there's movies. If you're thinking I have a gift that can help the world, this wonderful gift, how can I get rich off of it? I don't
Yeah.
know if you have that gift. I'm thinking you probably wouldn't have been granted that blessing. I just don't think.
Agreed to take advantage. Yeah. I believe the same. I believe that there are a range of abilities out there for people because all of our brains are so different. And I believe that a lot of us are more in tune with different things. And I believe you can also exercise it so you can maybe make it stronger. But like you said, I'm not sure it's one of those things you can just tap into and control in any instance. And recently I've had a lot of people come to me throughout the podcast development saying, "Oh, I'm a medium. Oh, I'm a psychic. I'm an intuitive. I'm a sensitive. All these different things." And I'm noticing a pattern that when I talk to some of these people, they don't do it for money. If something pops up in their head that they believe needs to be shared with someone specifically, they just share it. They don't, like, my favorite scam on Instagram is for a psychic medium to pop up in your messages and say, I have a message from you from the other side. It's really important. I really, really need to share it with you. And you're like, oh, yeah, really? And they're like, just click this link and pay this $95 and I'll tell you. And I'm like, yeah, I definitely don't believe you now. So, yeah, it's the people that are just volunteering the information that they receive, I think, are the genuine, quote unquote, psychics. I believe that it shouldn't be something you make money off of. If you happen to be really good at it and can tap into it pretty readily, no more so than the next person, and you want to share it with people, I understand that you can get overwhelmed if you're doing it for free. So maybe, like, set up a system to where you can have so many people you talk to a day, but still don't charge them, because
Maybe
you'll
a
still get
side
your
job.
Exactly. Like, I don't believe it should be monetized in the ways it is. I know there's people out there that can have the ability to tap into stuff and help people. And sometimes people want to give them money for helping. So sure, you can accept if it's offered. But I believe asking for money to relay sensitive information from the other side is really, it's hurtful. It's rude. It's selfish. I don't know. It just doesn't feel kind in any way. And I feel like if you're a psychic and you're relaying these messages, you should be doing it with kindness.
I agree.
And a thing about, I recently saw in a YouTube video, Cody and Satori were kind of speculating over whether or not they were helping or hurting, because there's, that's a whole other situation. But if they were genuinely psychics, the helping or hurting situation she was discussing was, they might be giving people so much confidence in the afterlife that they think that would be better than being here. And I think that's also an irresponsible
Whoa.
situation. Yeah, they talked about that. And another YouTuber I watched, Mythos, he talked about it as well. It's a sensitive situation. If you're going to give someone a message from the other side, you better make sure it's genuine, because you don't know the repercussions it could have on that person's life.
You know, it's a good thought, but coming from such a horrible source, it just makes me a little bit, it turns my stomach a little bit.
Yeah.
Anybody who associates with Cody and Satori, with Jason Halls, with Andrea Perrone, with the Warrens, with Tony Spera, they're all tainted now. They can have real life, awesome, tangible experiences with evidence, and we're not going to believe them because they bullshit us too much.
Exactly, and I agree.
And it angers me.
Agree, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I think the whole reason she even said it was because they were getting criticism over this specific subject. So I feel like she said it on camera to kind of take that heat off of her and let the audience know, we're not trying to do anything like that. We do care. But I feel like it was kind of moot because they're still faking, in my opinion. They're faking, in my opinion. I believe they've been debunked over and over and over again.
It's one of the worst cases in my mind, because I don't know, did you see when they first came on YouTube as part of that show, and it was like not debunked yet, it was just happening on YouTube?
Mm-hmm.
And you're watching it, and I don't know about you, like I'm not like really a fool that falls for anything, but I was amazed. I'm like, oh my God, these guys can do this? I have to go see these people and talk to my loved ones who've passed. Mm-hmm. You get this emotional attachment to the idea. Yes. And then that's also how you get the defenders, right? Like, oh my God, no, they really have to be real, because I can't believe anything else now.
Right? And why would they say it if it wasn't real? Yeah.
And it's so awful. It's so awful.
Mm-hmm. I only had a different opinion the first time I learned about them, because I've had an opinion about psychics who do this. I don't believe you can just activate it. I don't believe you can control it. And I don't believe it goes so quickly and smoothly. Every time they do it, it's so on point. It's so... It feels kind of rehearsed. It feels kind of like they know exactly what to do, when to do it. And I don't like that. I believe if there is actually spirit activity, they don't even know what they're doing on the other side. It feels like there's this barrier, this lost in translation barrier for us and the other side. We can't assume every time a knock means yes or two knocks means no. Like, how do we know that they're understanding that? That always bothered me too. So
this whole thing is so set up. I mean, why the Conjuring House for the first time showing this when they can do it anywhere?
Exactly. And that's exactly why I believe the Warrens are popping up all over YouTube, because about 6 months ago when they did like Sam and Cody and then Cody and Satori, Sam and Colby and then Cody and Satori, they're all over the internet right now about the Conjuring House. That leads to Andrea, which leads to the Warrens because of the movie. So everyone's popping up saying, like, I'm seeing more and more of people debunking the Warrens versus saying what they did and said was
Yeah,
real. So
yeah.
that's really interesting. Enjoying that. A bigger influencer, CelinaSpookyBoo. Do you know who she is?
I do not know Serena Spook. She have dark hair?
Yes, and she
She
first
does a
got famous,
YouTube
I believe,
channel?
for the sleepwalking videos.
I don't know
And yeah,
that
and
those, but
she does have a
I
YouTube
don't
channel, and she does
I
a
don't know if
lot of
she's who I
stuff.
think she is, because I just saw one the other day that was a Warren debunk. I'm like, is this somebody copying after after Stevie? And I was like, no, she's just doing her thing, but yeah, no
Yeah, that was her
sourcing
most
and
recent
everything.
video. I think that was her,
Okay,
and
so that's who it was. Okay.
yeah, and I watched that video, and it kind of bothered me because not because she was debunking or doing what I do, which I wish more people would do what I do. I love when I see other content creators doing that deeper dive on the Warrens. But when I pulled this up to watch it, I was so excited because she has such a massive following and she reaches so many of the younger people who come into the paranormal industry and different situations in the paranormal believing these stories because they're watching TV and they're watching YouTube. So she's coming out saying the Warrens are not as great as we think. And I'm watching her video, and it bothers me because if you're going to create content and tell some facts and try and present information so people can take it in as fact versus hearsay or what the TV says or what YouTube says, it's important to get those facts right. So a couple things. I was watching her and she talked about the Arnie Cheyenne Johnson case, and immediately she said he shot someone. And that really bothered me because even those tiny details that you get wrong can manifest into greater details that are like the telephone game. Down the road, it's more and more wrong. He
And
was
it hurts her
Arnie.
credibility, right? Because
Yeah,
she,
exactly. And so she's reaching all these people, but with the wrong information. I was like, well, he actually stabbed someone 4 times. Some sources say 5, some sources say 20. Like it's crazy how the
but
information
say that.
differs.
Say there's
Exactly.
different versions of the
Say I
story. We don't know which one's right.
right.
Yeah.
I read this, I read that, so this is what I have to present you. And then she moves on and she talks more about, and she messes up some names, which I understand. Some of these names are really hard to say, but that also changes the story down the line. So if you're having trouble with the name, say, hey, I tried to look this up, but this is how it's spelled. And this is how I think it said. And so to like completely change
Right.
how it's pronounced and move letters around, I get that, but try to express that you're not really sure so people don't go looking for it and find other false information. And so I watched it and I finished it, and it did point out a lot of key points in the Warren situation. And she talked about Judith Penny. She talked about how they got, busted at the parents, how they got kicked out, stuff like that. And it's important, I think, that the younger people know those facts. But I wish she would have been a little more diligent about how she made that video, a little more care into the information that she shared.
So, listeners, to interpret for you, she's not criticizing her. She's just giving her some constructive feedback. We're just not a competition. We're not hating on
Right, right.
YouTube. There's
And I'm a huge
um
fan of Celina. I've been watching her for a really long time. I was so excited when I saw she did that video, but yeah, like I just with her platform, I think it's her duty to her listeners.
I think they're. I'm not referring to her directly or any specific YouTuber, but there's a bunch of them out there who were doing the Warrens like that. And I think what happens is I hope this doesn't happen to you, Stevie, but people come in and they bring their receipts, they build a giant audience,
Mhm.
and then everything's a little bit more cut and paste after that.
I agree. It gets a little overwhelming for them. They're trying to keep up with producing the content, and I understand that. But I say all the time, like, I'm not going to put something out unless it's done. I'm not going to
All right.
skip information. I'm not going to exclude something because I didn't have time. If I don't have time, I'm going to make the time for it because I don't want to present it to my listeners. I'm sure my listeners would rather me wait a week or 2 or 5 months, like I recently did, to put out correct information because that's what they come to my show for. So I would hate to get to the point where I was so overwhelmed that I was just slinging information as it was presented to me instead of ever checking into it.
This is what I respect about you so much, Stevie. This is why I wanted you on my show, why I gladly came on the hottest, fastest growing new podcast in the paranormal world. So honored to be here. But the thing I respect is I bring the same thing. And I think there's other YouTubers and other podcasters that bring it. But we see so many people in real media, in actual media, who don't really honor what journalism is.
Yes.
And we're not journalists.
Right.
I don't think you went to school for it.
No,
I
I went to school for fashion design.
Yeah, and you're doing that, I think, right? So
yep.
The thing is, we bring journalistic integrity to homegrown podcasts, and we enforce it, and we won't have anything less. And that's what I respect about you. So thank you for doing that. And that's why I think you got listeners you do have, and why I hope you get so many more in the near future. Really.
Thank you. I really, really appreciate that. And I think that might go back to like what you said about the burnout and the getting overwhelmed because you get too big. These reporters, these investigative journalists, they're on deadlines. They're on payment. Like, they have to do this to get paid. So it's not, I watched an interview with a reporter one time who said, it's not telling the truth. It's the biggest story first. Then you go back and you check it. And then you can have more content because you're coming in again saying, oh, this is what really happened. So it's like you're making double off of your mistake, which is really frustrating because sometimes people won't watch the amendment. People won't watch the next because they're so shocked by the first one. They don't need any more information. They've got what they need and they can have their rage or their concern or whatever.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And that's the problem with paranormal as well. People will see one thing, make up their mind, and that's how they're set. And that's the issue with Nesper. A lot of their followers,
oh, right.
yeah, a lot of their followers are very ingrained in their followingness, the way they are loyal to this. They can't even be deterred by a pedophile. So it's really frustrating that I was questioned by Nesper listeners and followers about my evidence when it was such a detrimental subject.
In my journey through YouTube after discovering you and looking at the Warrens, I did not realize I found and discovered, and it's weird, it's a discovery for me, I should know this, but I just never seen it. Tony Spera has been doing his podcast since the 70s?
It started as a public broadcasting station situation. He had it on TV until YouTube became a thing, and then he just moved it to YouTube.
Yeah, he's been doing it for a long time. So these people have been listening since the 80s and 70s.
They're and a lot of
they know him personally in their minds. They feel close to him. Yeah.
Yes, and a lot of them are closer to his age, so it has been years for them. It's not the younger people. The younger people are coming in because of Tony working with younger YouTubers, the famous YouTubers. But the older people have, like you said, been there since Tony started, inserting himself, and they became, in their minds, having this close relationship with him. They trust him. So why would they not? It's been so long, and people don't like to know that they've been fooled for so long or fooled at all. It really bothers people to admit that they were.
They were like following any group think. It's hard to break that.
Exactly, and Tony has the Warrens backing him, so he just rides on the coattails of the Warren story, continues to perpetuate them, and continues to have this following, this little following in the palm of his hand. So it's frustrating to know that people are so ingrained in that following, they won't even take hardcore evidence of something they won't take it in.
So this is a good opportunity, probably for you to get clarification out on the podcast of exactly what was with Joey, because I know there were some back and forth and there was some amendments to be made there. I think you made them, but I just want to be clear because I'm still a little bit fuzzy.
No, I appreciate that, and I have announced it on the social media, and I did put up a YouTube video. It was a video short of my screenshot of my announcement on social media. I wanted to put it out immediately when I learned, but I did plan to put it in the next episode, so thank you for bringing it up. But there was a lot of back and forth with Joe's record. when I first discovered him, the very first thing that was presented to me, I used a search engine to find him, and the first thing that popped up was his criminal record. And one of those images on this search engine told me that he had sexually assaulted a person under the age of 1, just the number 1. And any person that would enrage, that would really make a fire build inside of you for against this man for that
first
kind of
impression,
harm.
first thing
Exactly.
you see. Yeah.
And then there was another charge that said sexual assault battery on a child under the age of 14. And so my research team, my friends and I, anybody who is willing to help me has been helping me. And we're all searching because like you said, I like to have the receipts. And if I'm going to present this to the people, I need the evidence, because I don't want to say anything that's not true or could be misconstrued or could be proven. Like, if I don't have the evidence, someone can go find it and prove me wrong. And I don't want that, because that hurts my credibility. So I always try my best. And in this case, we finally figured out we were unable to find the exact charge, the exact case where it was a child under 1. So I reached out to a cop friend of mine and I asked him, I was like, hey, do you know of this case? And he's like, I'll look into it. Couldn't find it. So another friend of mine reached out to a friend of hers that might understand it. And that person said, it is very possible the search engine I was initially using could have cut off the 4 of that 14, which would make it appear to say 1. So that was a really big change. But however, I still stand by the fact that a child was hurt. Regardless of that child's age, there was a child hurt, and it says under 14, so we don't know the age of that child. So I just wanted people to know, even though right,
yeah,
exactly, even though I really screwed up that particular thing, it's still important to know the charge still exists for a minor. I don't want people thinking it was a baby. I really hope people understand that I'm very sorry for misleading them in that and perpetuating it, because I was very upset about it. And I was also very upset about the fact that Tony would jump on his podcast and say, oh, it was a long time ago. Like, it was absolutely no big deal. That enraged me.
It was just so long ago.
Yeah,
we hear that so much from abusers
happened.
and their defenders.
Yes,
oh my God, so much.
Yes.
It was so long ago. Why do you matter? It doesn't matter now. He was younger, and it was
he was so frustrated with the fact that he lost this case because of something that happened so long ago. So I just want people to know that regardless of when it happened, the age of the child, it was still a child, it was still a minor, and it still happened. And it wasn't a one-off thing. It wasn't, oh, I did this 30 years ago and I tried my best to get better. No, charge after charge after charge in multiple states. And we're still actually trying to decipher if there's 2 charges for the sexual battery on a child, because there's one charge that says a child under 16, and there's one that says a child under 14. So we're still trying to figure that out. And when I do, I will present it all for people to see. But we did share a lot of screenshots of the rap sheet. There's a lot of domestic violence. So one was in Massachusetts, one was in Maryland, and one was in Florida.
Oh, wow.
And and there were charges for domestic violence. There were charges for assault. There's charges for assault on a police officer. There's charges for theft. There's a ton of traffic violations. Like, how do you get that many traffic violations? You really just don't care what you're doing. So
I don't know that it's so much that Tony advocates for child sex acts as much as maybe just doesn't care who it is, as long as he tells the story that sells him.
Yes, I agree with that. Like, I've been asked, do you think Tony knew about it prior? I hate to think he did, but I don't think, regardless of if he did or not, I don't think he cared. I think that's the more important question. He wanted this book. He said repeatedly in that one video announcing 6 months ago that he had this man telling this story, that first he's thinking about writing a book. We really should write a book. I think I'm going to write a book. I am writing a book. Like, the progression in that video blew my mind.
One video.
Yes, exactly. By the end, the book was already written. They were just waiting to publish it. So
but then he just met him.
It's just, right. He said he reached out to him, but it doesn't specify when. It doesn't specify how long he's known this man. And then the thing that gets me the most is he was really perturbed that people expected him to do a background check. I don't expect him so much per se to do a background check. I expected him to check the man's story. If he had just looked into this man, he knew he knew he lived in Florida. So your first step would be to check that this man, with the name he's giving you, lived in Bridgeport, Connecticut in 1974. That would be your first step, in my opinion. If you are going to verify someone's story and then being present somewhere that they're not currently, look into where they were when this was taking place. That would have led to a criminal report. I know for a fact if he would have typed in that man's name in any search engine to check where he lived, he would have got the criminal report.
So you see what I did there, though? I asked you what states so that your sleuther listeners will, in those states, will look into it for you.
Yeah.
I feel like that this could just be me being speculative. It means nothing what I'm saying, guys, so don't take this at face value. It just feels to me that sometimes when Tony says he's had demons, Joey, he's had these demons, and these demons have been controlling him for most of his life. I feel like it's code for these demons made him do horrible things. That
which would explain his background should anyone find it. I agree. I don't know that to be.
I mean, we can't say that's exactly what it is. It feels that way.
Well, Tony even says in his video that this man almost murdered somebody because of the demon. Tony says that. So if you know this man, so
you mentioned the one thing he didn't do.
Somebody. right. And who's to say he didn't? Like, maybe one of those assaults was that bad. So that would mean Tony knows about at least part of his criminal history. If he's telling you that, wouldn't you verify that as well? I mean, the whole point is to verify the man's story. If you don't verify a story, how are you going to write a book and say it's fact?
All about the sensationalism. Oh my God.
Exactly.
There's a demon. Has Tony Spira ever been involved in a case that didn't involve demons, just like just sweet spirits looking to be seen? Has that ever not been a thing?
Agreed. People bring that up. Someone I was having a conversation with brought that up recently. How do we know they're not just trying to reach out in a kind way? Why do they always have to be evil? Why does it always have to be a demon? They knocked something over. Maybe they were just trying to get your attention. That doesn't mean they're trying to demonically possess you.
Why are you running from the ghost of children that were brutally murdered?
Exactly.
What are you doing?
Yeah. You're making it worse. They've already got trauma. But no, I agree. And it's silly.
Oh, have you seen 28 Days Haunted yet? We were talking about how you were halfway through it. Or at least the John Wolfe recap.
I can't have a hard time. My ADHD goes nuts, and I'm thinking about 101 different things every time I turn it on. I can't stay engaged in it.
Yeah, save hours of your life that you'll never get back, and just watch the John Wolfe recap. I get it. Okay. He's a debunker who's taking it from a debunker standpoint and making fun of it, but it's very worthy of the making fun of. I don't know if you know who John Wolfe is. I'm not his friend. I don't know him, but I love his content, and I'm just mentioning it because this particular video stands out to me. And it also, it was actually, I'm going to say this honestly, I had suspicions about Tony Spira and the Warrens already. When I saw this, it broke my heart because I saw how Tony was acting and what he was saying, and for the first time ever, I actually felt like I knew who Tony Spira was, and it was gross. And I was like, well, anything associated with Tony Spira, the Warrens, all the credibility is gone.
Yeah, I can see that. I'm definitely going to watch that and look him up. I did not know who he was, so I will definitely watch that. But I agree with you on that reaction because I've watched so much stuff with Tony, and every time some things he says just makes it's cringy. It makes my skin crawl. It makes me grit my teeth, and it's just like I can't watch him and be comfortable doing it. It's interesting.
Feel dirty.
Yeah, I agree. I hate how matter-of-factly he speaks about things he doesn't know. That stresses me out a little bit.
He got that from Ed.
Yeah, agreed. Yes. Okay, so speaking of Ed, I wanted to ask you a question. So Ed likes to perpetuate in pretty much every story that if you play with things like a Ouija board, you're inviting something in, you're going to get possessed, end of story, you did it to yourself kind of situation.
This is going to happen.
Exactly. Do you believe that Ouija boards hold that power?
Are you possessed? Do you have like 15 Ouija boards in your room?
I know. That's a good question. I mean, I've been called a demon recently, so we do not know.
You have been called a demon.
Yes. Someone commented and said, I think you're actually the demon, and I'm pretty sure it was a Joe supporter.
I don't know that Ouija boards have that power.
Mm-hmm.
I think the human spirit believing in the Ouija board might have some kind of ability to conjure something up. So,
like manifestation.
Right. So the like a manifested larynx. The Ouija board is just a piece of board with letters on it and a triangle with a piece of magnifying glass in the center. That's all it freaking is. That's all it is. So, I mean, but if you believe it's going to conjure spirits and you're trying to reach the spirits, if you happen to at that moment somehow be in tune and not know it, you might bring something and then blame it on the Ouija board. That's possible. I have no idea. I
agree completely. I love this question because it's something you can speculate for days, really. And if you look at the history,
this, yeah,
and if you look at the history of the board itself, it was used by people when it first gained traction and popularity. It was used by people like the Fox sisters, who were back and forth debunked. Sometimes they were debunked, sometimes they'd admit they were faking, and then they turn around and say, no, we're not. We only said that to get people off our back kind of situation. So the Ouija board itself has a very touchy history. And then if you go even further than that, the planchette was its own thing before the board was added to it. And so people would use the planchettes. They'd stick a pencil in it and they'd do automatic writing with it where everyone could touch the plank and push it around. And it started as, I believe, something to cure boredom, because this was way back when we didn't have television, we didn't have radio yet. A lot of people's entertainment was going to town and seeing a play or having people over and doing a party. And then that's how tarot got started. People were having parties and they started using cards for fortune telling. And it was because they were bored. They didn't have anything to do. And then to further on what you said about it may not be the board, but maybe the person. I believe in energy. I've mentioned this before. I believe that energy is something we don't fully understand. I believe it can be manipulated. I believe it can be created. I think that if you have a strong enough sense or connection to energy, you can manipulate it, manifest it, not control it, anything like that. And these things that we use are just kind of like amplifiers versus tools. You can do it without it, but maybe if you use it, it just makes it a little easier. It makes it a little more straightforward, stuff like that. I just don't believe that, as you can tell, I don't believe Ouija boards are evil. I don't believe it's their fault that this stuff happened.
Yeah, I agree. I could probably give a chance to ghost hunter type shows if they'd eliminate half the tools they use.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. Some of those
an app on the phone saying scary words ever so often, that's immediate turn to channel for me.
Yeah. Apparently a ghost hunting crew created their own device, and how do you trust that? How do you know they didn't program it to say all the, like, that drives me crazy. Things like our technology has advanced to the point where we're making deep fakes. We can everything's wireless. You can have a remote, you can have voice command. Like, how do you know these people haven't programmed voice command into these devices? And when they ask a specific question, the answer comes through.
You'll see them in a graveyard and the phone app will say, dead person. And their eyes get real big and they're like, there's dead people here.
Your phone's listening to you. The phone knows you're in the cemetery. It's gonna. Oh, another thing that got me recently. Have you seen the people freaking out over the Tesla driving through the cemetery and it's showing the people being present? Yes. So I looked into that because I was like, wow, that's pretty trippy.
I'm glad you did. I'm glad you did because I'm curious about that.
And I got this. Okay, so there's this guy named Mitch K official, or something like Mitch C official, something like that. He's amazing. I'll definitely link it in my show notes for everybody. I watch him pretty much daily, and his job is on his social medias, on TikTok and Instagram. He does shorts where he explains stuff people are freaking out about on the internet. Like someone saw this crazy bug or this alien or this whatever, and he'll jump on and he'll be like, okay, this is what it really is, and explain why and how. And I love that. So I saw it on his page first, and I'd been meaning to look into it, and he reminded me when he did it. And so what happened was, the sensor is meant to register any foreign object of a certain size as a human. So the headstones were actually what was triggering the sensor and telling the people they were approaching humans.
Very much like the Kinect thing. Very much like the Kinect
yes,
thing.
the same, exactly, yeah. And so people like to think that means it's a ghost, when science is, you got to look into the science of it. You got to look into the technology of it. Things do have explanations if you look deep enough.
Yes.
Would you yourself play with a Ouija board?
Yes.
Yes.
I would, but as long as my daughter lives in my house, she will not allow me to bring one in. And it's my house and all. But I just won't do it. But I did walk around Books A Million the other day with a Ouija board in my hand just to freak her out. But I didn't buy it.
I love that. That's great. Yeah, I freak a lot of people out with my collection, and I had a phone case once, and I was on a tour, and I had it in my lap, and I didn't even think about it, and the tour guide wouldn't start the tour until I turned my phone case over. He didn't want to see the Ouija board print on my phone case.
Board phone case? Okay.
Yes, I thought that was crazy. People are really afraid of them. But yeah, so before I got really into being a debunker, I was wary of Ouija boards. I was not afraid, but I would not play them in my own home, because should they invite something that I didn't mean to or whatever, I don't want it in my house. So I would play with them, but it would be other places. So that was
seems
my
like a
answer
good
before.
idea. Yeah, it seems
Yeah,
like a good
I
idea.
still don't play with them in my home. I am a very respectful skeptic. I may not believe things, or I may have trouble believing things, but I also don't want to test something I don't have the answers to. So I think that's kind of important to know, like the whole situation of not having solid, distinct answers. You can't make decisions based on stuff like that.
I have to take issue with the wording, because can you really, if you're an experiencer of the paranormal and a believer in the paranormal, can you really be a skeptic and a debunker? Or are you just somebody who wants to know the truth?
See, I get that. And it's funny that you say that, because I used to call myself a skeptical believer, because I do believe, and I've had my own experiences, but the skepticism comes from the fact that everything being pushed on me nowadays has so much faking in it.
Yes.
So that's where the skeptic in me comes in. So I can watch and enjoy, like I love the show A Haunting, even though I've been told by various people that some of the stories are fake or embellished or whatever. I like to sit down and watch someone tell their story as they remember it, versus jumping on a platform to perpetuate something to make money. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know these shows make money off these people's stories, and I'm sure they get paid as well, but I would rather watch that than someone jumping every 3 minutes thinking they heard a ghost.
Yes. You know, I think I mentioned this when we interviewed you, I believe this, but there is this thing where I think that ghost hunters are interesting to watch. I think because they do go to real haunted places, or allegedly haunted places. So I don't know how we know when to believe them and not to believe them. But I do watch some YouTube videos. Like one of my favorites is, because they come to him he brings them to his show, is I watch Caspersight. Okay. He's a British guy that does reaction videos to ghost video top 5s and top 10s. It's entertaining. He's entertaining. He's a weird guy, but he's entertaining. And sometimes he goes, "This looks legit," and you're sitting there going, "No, Caspersight, no, it's not legit." But sometimes he's like, "Oh, I'm calling bullshit," and sometimes it's obvious to him even. And he'll say that. He'll say, "Even for me, I don't believe this. You know, I'm not a debunker, but." And the fun thing about that is I watch it because I want to try to pick out, if I see 30, 40, 60, 80 haunted videos on top 5 countdowns over the course of a week, one of them might be legit.
Mm-hmm.
While debunkers are trying to find what's fake with every single one, I'm trying to figure out, what about that one?
Mm-hmm.
That one I don't see the cut. It doesn't look like there's bad video quality. There's no masking. I don't know what's happening here. There's no weird
Mm-hmm.
shadows. One in particular I'll say, because we talked about this on my podcast, but there was one that reminded me of when I saw a ghost as a kid. It was a hallway. These people were doing a tour of a house I think it was a Halloween thing or a ghost tour thing. And there was a ghost just standing in the doorway in this dark room down the hall. The camera could see it. This one girl in the corner could see it, and she's covering her eyes and crying and trying to be consoled by her friends. Like, I don't know what is it? And it just reminds me of when I saw something that nobody else could see. And then they all see it on camera later. But we didn't have a camera present with my thing. But it just seemed, I was like, I don't know if that's real. But it really, really reminds me of a real occurrence that I had. And I'm like, could that be the real one? You know, I don't know.
No, I feel that completely. I'm glad you mentioned shows like that, because I like the compilations where someone will show a bunch of videos and react to them, and sometimes they'll give information and sometimes they'll just genuinely react and then move on. And like you said, you'll see occasionally a video that makes you wonder, was that faked? Is that real? And I love that stuff too. I have a love-hate relationship with the quick social media videos where they're popping up in your feed and you watch it and you move on to the next because people don't take time to question. And then I'll go and I'll watch the videos, and I want to know these answers and questions, and I want to be able to look deeper into it. And they're going through them so fast you can't. And then sometimes you'll have someone that'll react and point it out. And so like I have the love-hate where I love when they take the time and they show stuff like that and they explain it, but then you also have everyone flying through it so quickly you don't know what's real and what's worth taking the time to investigate.
Yeah, definitely. There's another YouTuber. I know this isn't supposed to be about advertising all YouTubers, but
no, absolutely. I love promoting everybody.
This is a debunker that I am a fan of, but I'm kind of don't. I don't watch him religiously, and it's not a reflection of him personally. Beardo Gets Scared.
I love Beardo. Yeah.
I'm going to tell you why I like Beardo. And this is why, and it's very similar to like how I respect you. It's that Beardo, I respect him for the same reason I don't watch him that much. He spends so much time, I mean lots of time, talking about drama in the debunking and reaction video community.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like it because I just want to get down to the debunking or get down to his investigation of 31 Street or whatever, East 31, you know, whatever he's doing. I want to get to the meat of the video. I don't care about his arguments and making up with Caspersight and these other debunkers or whatever, or these other video makers. I don't care about that. But what I respect and love about it is that he does. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, like, absolutely.
He actually is now doing content he cares about.
Yeah, and he's showing his audience himself more and how the community is, what it's like to be in this community when you have so much hate being slung at you just for trying to find the truth. I don't see why people think it's okay to sling so much hate and attack you as a person, how you look, your family, like he says. Like, that's really out of line. You may not agree with what he says and what he's debunking, but that doesn't give you any right to attack him, his appearance, his family, anything like that. That is not okay. And I like that he points that out because it's happening to all of us. I'm new to it, but I have gotten, my share of hate comments and stuff, and like people calling me a demon. I'm actually the demon. I'm not debunking the demon. So it's interesting.
If you were a demon, I would not be here on this show.
I appreciate that validation. But yeah, like, I don't understand how you can be so blind that you turn to that kind of hatred. Like, you're so unwilling to accept a different perspective that it turns your whole brain to hatred. I don't get that.
I think there's been a progression to recognition of the groupthink thing we talked about earlier, the whole idea of a mini cult. I think I didn't until my mid-40s learn the power of narcissism. Until I had somebody try to destroy my reputation and had tons of people on their side, turn my friends against me, had people physically threatening me in private messages. I didn't realize it. So for me, the progression of recognizing cults is, oh, cults are a thing. Oh,
Yep.
they're funny things for horror movies. No, there are real things that people go through and have tragic lives because of, and they have to
Yep.
recover from. And
Mhm.
there's these different cults, and then there's political type cult things. We're not getting detailed on that here on this show, but there's political cults, and then there's your little mini Facebook group cults, and your
Mhm.
YouTube community cults, and your Twitter
Mhm.
community cults, and
Yep.
your friends at work community cults, and the cult of the kids in school. There's all these cults of personality where one person or one small group of people just dominate the narrative, and everybody
Mhm.
just falls in line to belong with that group. And it's so
Yep. Yep.
maddening that never been more clear to me than today. Just
Mhm.
how much that is. You see it on YouTube. You're saying they might see and today be objectively in love with the content of a Beardo Gets Scared, but the other content they loved, have been watching for 2 years longer, says something negative about Beardo. Beardo's public enemy number one.
Yep.
That is the most disturbing thing about human nature, I think. I think it's just
Yeah.
human nature, and it's becoming more pertinent, and I wish it would go away. But too many people
Mhm.
have learned the power of wielding that narcissism, and it makes me
Yeah.
sick a little bit.
Yeah, and a lot of
Sorry
there's
about
a
the rant.
different. No, totally. It's a thing in the community, and there's different minds in these groups where you have the follower who never questions. You have the person who's got a bigger voice, so they project this narrative over the people who are still just following, and it's a repetitive cycle of it. And so when someone comes forward with the intent of bettering the community with some fact checking, for them to be attacked so severely says a lot about the way the community works. So if you're a fan of one of these people that have a cult following, you need to keep your brain aware and make sure you're not falling for things just simply because you like the person you're watching. So I think that's really important, and I'm glad you brought it up. So it goes back to the Warrens too, because before, back when they were doing it, they didn't have social media. They had the media. So they're calling every newspaper, they're telling every reporter, they're pushing this out there, and people who religiously read the newspaper and take everything the newspaper says as fact fall into
Yeah,
this category where they believe.
it was in the Times,
So,
guys.
yeah,
They gaslit
exactly.
the
How can you
world.
question it?
Yeah.
Exactly.
I feel like we
So,
all have to
yeah.
get burned at some point to come around and start seeing
Oh, I
things.
agree. I agree completely. For a lot of people, I've noticed it was Zach Baggins. When he started, I was a fan. People I know that don't like him now were fans. Like we really loved this man and what he was doing, and the show was so fun and it was so exciting. And the more the show progressed and the more ridiculous he got, the more people realized. But you still have that big, massive following for Zach who believes Zach and think his possession every single episode is legit. So it's growth over time in people's inability to question what they're being presented with.
Well, this is where you're different. Again, where you're different than a lot of those people, and this is where we need to be more objective human beings in general. Is you had Andrea Perron on,
Mm-hmm.
and you talked to her, and you said yourself you were starstruck, and
Mm-hmm.
you were using her three books as the Bible of what really
Mm-hmm.
happened in The Conjuring to combat the lies of the Warrens and the lies of the
Exactly.
studios.
Yep.
And I'm sitting there thinking while I'm listening to it, I'm like, Stevie, how do you know not all
Mm-hmm.
three full of shit? And you come to that
Exactly.
conclusion after you see, her love for Cody and Satori.
Mm-hmm.
And the past shit crazy stuff she says. I don't
Yes.
want to. I was not going to say she's lying until she again everything they touch these people gets
Mm-hmm.
destroyed. I'm like, okay, I can't believe her.
Yep.
But if
Yeah.
somebody like me has a podcast, and I'm a big fan of Zach Baggins and Ghost Adventurers, and Zach Baggins messaged me privately and says, I love your work. I want to be on your podcast. And I put him on my podcast. A lot of people in my position will now be elevated by him coming on the podcast, feel so grateful that when he gets
Mm-hmm.
debunked and he could beat his woman or whatever, we'd be like, Zach Baggins is the best. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the problem, right? It's
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
blind loyalty.
Yes. Yes. The blind loyalty for sure. And it's really frustrating that, so I love when people start at the beginning of my show. I really want people to start at episode 1 because it is a progression. I did learn a lot. I did experience new things. I did have opinion changes. And like you said about Andrea, so when I spoke to her, I was awestruck at first. And she's this sweet little old lady. Like, she's not going to lie to me. She's telling her life story. This is crazy. And in the back of my mind, the whole time, I'm like, you're a researcher. You're a skeptical mind now. How are you not questioning her further? And I didn't ask her any hard questions. I didn't question her answers. I just let her tell her story. And then as my show progressed, I started learning things like the fact that she supports Cody and Satori and pushes them for the house, the fact that she goes to the house all the time and talks about things, and how her story reflects who she's speaking with. Who wants to hear what she's talking about is, if she's talking to one person, it's the Warrens wronged us. They really, made our lives difficult, this, that, and the other. But if she's talking to someone who supports the movie, she talks about how the Warrens saved them. And even though there was trial and tribulation with that, I respect Lorraine and everything she did for us. Like, I've heard her say that. So the more I progress on my journey, the more my eyes open, the more I learn, the more I can take in. And I will be revisiting that. And I do want to try really hard to get her back on the show. I don't know if I'll succeed at that considering my reputation now, but I would like to try and ask her some more hard-hitting questions.
I would say this. I don't think you can be too hard on yourself for the way you conducted the interview, because I was thinking this when I was doing Come Get Some, and I would sometimes have a UFO experiencer or a paranormal person on, is I think about George Norrie and Art Bell. Mm-hmm. I know damn well they didn't believe every crackpot that came on their show.
Right.
But they gave them the forum. They would give them the forum and let them tell their story, and if they had to, feign interest. Mm-hmm. Okay, so amazing. And you know what? It wasn't in their best interest to come back and do a follow-up. But if you want to do it, that's great. I can't criticize it. I know I was sitting there like, just, my heart sank. I was like, I don't know if I believe Andrea. I don't know. Mm-hmm. Oh, I don't believe Andrea. I just don't. Maybe I'm wrong. It just seems hard to believe now.
No, yeah. And then another thing that helped me really grasp back onto my skeptical brain and my research brain with Andrea was when Jamie Rubio reached out to me. And she's a writer, she's a historian, she has done so much work on this case, specifically on the Conjuring House's history, which she doesn't like. I don't even like. It's frustrating that we call it the Conjuring House because, it's the Arnold Richardson farm. Whoever built it originally, it had a name. So we've overlooked the name because of the movie. And so Jamie's reached out to me, and she's telling me how she appreciates that I covered the fact that Bathsheba wasn't the villain. And she has gone so much deeper than that. And she actually sent me screenshots of where all the times she went through Andrea's book and pointed out lies that Andrea spoke about Bathsheba. And she confronted Andrea about it. And she even said to her, you ran this woman's name through the mud in your books and everything. And Andrea tried to counter that. And so Jamie sent her the proof, and Andrea didn't reply to her anymore. So that got me too. It's like, if you're going to tell a story and perpetuate a truth, you can't just back away when someone calls you out on something. So that just proves you
I don't like that.
Don't have your story together. I agree completely.
If you told me that I was wrong about something that I said, I have two modes on that. I want to tell you why you're wrong and why I absolutely know what I'm saying, or I want to correct the record.
Right, exactly.
Why would anyone have any other stance than that?
Exactly. If you have the proof to say, no, I'm right, you're wrong, do it. If you don't have that proof and someone questions you, it's your job to make sure you got it right.
Own it.
And to admit if you didn't. That's the biggest thing. Like, if these people would be like, oh, we were wrong about this, but we still stand by the fact that we checked into it and we investigated it, and this was our results, not we checked it, we investigated it, it's definitely true. Regardless of, how you feel, the actual evidence, anything like that, you're just doing it for your show, which is not okay.
Nope. Agree.
And speaking of shows and like the movies and the Conjuring movies and all of this, like the whole reason I'm in this is because I'm a huge, huge fan of movies that represent a true ghost story. So that leads me to my question for you. Do you have a favorite movie that portrays a quote unquote true ghost story?
Oh, true? I have a
It
favorite
doesn't
that's
have
a
to be really
fiction.
true, but claimed to say it was true. Because there's a lot out there that claim they were true.
The Exorcist. And I'll
Hmm.
tell you why. I'll tell you why. Um, until the age of 12, probably stemming from my experience at 4 years old seeing that ghost. I was afraid of the dark even. Like I was afraid of everything. Music from horror movies scared me. At 12 years old, I became addicted to horror movies. I just basically did the roller coaster thing for fear of heights, right? You just face it and do it. Adrenaline, you know. And horror movies have become more comical to me, and I got to the point to where horror movies don't scare me anymore.
Same.
But I sat alone in the dark and watched Exorcist one night. I think special edition with added footage, the whole
Yeah.
stair crawl,
Yes,
and
yes, that got me.
my skin was crawling all night long. And I'm like, okay,
Hmm.
well, there's a movie that actually got me disturbed. So
Yeah,
kudos to Exorcist. Exorcist was the one.
that's awesome. And I love that you brought that movie up because I agree. When they released that extra footage that was held back so long, that scene was terrifying. It was so unnatural, and it made you feel everything wrong inside you that it meant for you to feel. And I loved that. And that's why I
Also, a nice
loved movies
throwback
because
to practical effects, by the way. Go ahead.
yes, exactly. Like the movies back then were really, some of the horror films were really ahead of their time. Like I told you, I like the entity, and it actually got a lot of praise for the visual effects it had. So, but The Exorcist, it's great that you brought that up because, like you said, even if it wasn't, this one I plan to cover too because Ed claims to have, so there's hearsay I have heard from people tell me that Ed used to say he helped on that case. He knew the people on that case. He
Really?
like yeah,
Exorcist?
whoever he yeah, and I thought that was wild. And the fact that I've heard people say that, because of course I can't confirm it. That's just, hearsay from people who said they knew him, stuff
Okay.
like that.
All right.
But the funny part about it is Ed's whole thing about his like ghost hunting and trying to save the world from these terrible ghosts, it was ghost hunting first. And then after that movie came out, I think Ed may have realized because so like the satanic panic had just happened and we're recovering from that. And he's seeing this demonic thing happening to this supposed real child. And I think he just clung to that. And I've had people say, yeah, I really think that The Exorcist was the turn from ghosts to demons. And it went from
Right.
there, and then everything was a demon after that. So I thought that was
How
really
much?
interesting.
How much of this do you think is like a journey of religion to just recruit Catholics?
Hmm.
like
I wonder
I
that
hate
a
to say I'm a
lot.
Catholic, but I say that I'm a very loosely believing Catholic. I
Hmm.
don't there's too many versions of the Bible to say one's true, but just how much of your mind goes to the Catholics must be the right religion because you need a Catholic priest for an exorcism.
No,
This
yeah.
sounds set up to me a little bit.
I can agree with that too because Ed was known, and I've not been able to debunk this. Like, I've heard people say Tony's not really religious and he kind of fakes it, but I have not been able to find any evidence that Ed wasn't anything but really, really devout. Like, on his deathbed, I heard a story where a nurse was wearing a pentagram and it actually scared him, like, really, really badly. So I believe he truly believed. I just believe, like you said, he's trying to push it on other people so they believe as much as he does and as intently as he does. And part of me wonders, was that because he needed the validation of it so he could feel better in
Hmm.
his beliefs about it? Whether he actually
Interesting.
believed in the ghosts and the hauntings of the people that were talking about it, I think he really was devout and really fearful of these things. And I think he thought he could harness other people's fear in it to make money.
Maybe.
And
Might be
then
something
this
there.
is so much speculation. Like, I always have to reiterate, this is opinion. I don't have facts for Ed's personality. I don't have facts for his thinking. It's just interesting to hear people tell me things, to see stories about him, to research, things he's done and stuff that could represent his character.
I just have a hard time with the idea being pushed to me constantly that I have to live in fear that I'll be demonically possessed or have that happen in my family if I don't fully commit to the church.
Yes,
That's
I agree
disturbing
with
to
that.
me.
I agree, and I feel like it began as a way to control people, whether it be the masses, whether it be your children, whether it be your town. If you instill enough fear in your subjects or the people underneath you, you can control them better.
Yeah.
So yeah, if we got onto religion, that'd be a whole other podcast
We're going
too.
into another 3-hour podcast here.
Right? Yeah. All right, so I only have a couple more questions for you, and then we can wrap up. But before we switch from The Exorcist, I had one final question. Do you believe that story? Do you know about the true story behind it?
I know it was supposed to be a boy.
Mm-hmm.
Pass. No, I don't know. I really don't. I don't know.
No,
It depends. I wish we had more documentation than we have. For the time, it was incredibly documented, but we have so much better ways of documenting things since then.
Well,
I
I
wish we had better
learned
documentation.
Something.
Okay.
I know, I agree completely, but I recently learned something that might give you a little bit of that want. So I was having a conversation with someone about this story, and so the little boy's name was Roland Doe. And when I was talking to someone about it, I was like, "Oh yeah, exactly."
Joe
So
King
that's his...
is Rolling Doe.
Oh my gosh, that's really funny. So no, yeah, clearly it was. No, that is really funny that you bring that up, because the fact that these fake names that they're using are so closely related to a joke is hilarious. But no, so it's silly that they would use a name like that. Clearly, it was meant to protect the boy's the real identity. But when I was having this conversation with my friend, I said Ronald because I confused things. There's a little bit of dyslexia there, and the name just didn't register coming out of my mouth correctly. So I said Ronald, and she was like, "No, Roland." I was like, "Oh yeah, right, that's right." So then, just very, very shortly after that, I'm listening to another YouTube channel that I love. I'm really glad I get to shout out right now, the Y Files, and with
I like the Y
AJ
Files
and Hecklefish. Yes, I love them. So I'm watching, like every now and then I'll go back, and I've watched everything, but every now and then I'll go back and watch episodes he's done on the Warrens or on things related to the Warrens. And I happened to fall on one day just randomly where he talked about the history and the truth of the Exorcist movie. And he's talking about it. I'm like, yeah, I know. Okay. Yeah, I'll send you a link for it, and I'll also post it below so other people can check it out. But he's, addressing the fact that people knew him as Roland Doe, stuff like that. And then he moves on to the fact that apparently this man grew up, became a worker for NASA, and eventually someone found out who he was that he worked with, and he had to come clean about his history there and said it was all fake. It was all made up. And this man's real name is Ronald. So I said it right absentmindedly.
Are you psychic?
That was wild. Right? I'm dyslexic in that sense, where I'm trying to remember it and it just jumbles in my brain.
That's crazy. Yeah, though.
What a crazy synchronicity for it that to actually been his name. So I'm definitely going to do a deep dive on that.
I want people to know who AJ and Y Files are because I love them. Just to cap
I'm going to link him.
You will sit down and watch him go over a well-known, very common conspiracy in our world's history, and he will go through it like it's a true news story. He will cover everything as if it's definitely a conspiracy, and then he will lower the fucking boom on you. Can I say that word? Then he will lower the boom on you in the end and tell you why it's all fake. Except, I asked him about this. The one he does believe is that the moon is hollow. Or some kind of machine. That's
I love
crazy.
when he's like, I kind of believe this, right? I don't know how I feel about this. Like, I love his format. Like you said, he really does present the story as we know it, as we've heard it, as we experienced it, if we heard it already. And I love that. And then, like you said, that was a great way to put it. And I don't cuss on my show because I feel weird about it, because I have this like sense of Gotta be respectful. Gotta be respectful. But no, you're right.
Yeah,
He
I
dropped
try
a
not to do
fucking
it.
bomb. No,
Yeah.
it's crazy. And then you're like, what? I thought you believed this. I thought, like, I was fully on board, ready to be like, oh my God, that's true. I'm going to tell everybody. And then he's like,
It's
but
so
wait,
good.
hold on. Hold your horses.
Yeah.
This is what really happened. And I think he has kind of like a big influence on me subconsciously because I kind of do similar. I like to present what people know and then explain why they need to readjust their thinking on it. So I love his show for
Yeah.
that.
Awesome. That's awesome.
Yay! Okay, so let's see. Okay, yeah, this is a really big question I wanted to ask you. So I have some friends in the paranormal community that are working on bringing a show forth where it's real ghost investigations where they don't have all the crazy jump scares, where you're not seeing everything, something every couple minutes or whatever. And sometimes you might not get anything at all. Like it might be you watched an hour's worth of show and nothing happened.
Yeah.
How would you feel about a show like that? Would you watch that? Would you support something like that, even if you're watching an hour's worth of nothing?
Yeah. So here's the thing, because I know you mentioned this on our podcast that you had a friend that was trying to do that, and they said that there has to be something activity every 3 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
or they're not
Mm-hmm.
going to have a show. Um, it's just got to be entertaining, right?
Right.
And I do believe both Caspersight and Beardo Get Scared talked about this. One YouTuber channel, I think, where they were just super entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have funny, interesting people that you like to hang out with, that are so cool, so fun to watch, and nothing happens, well, no, you had a good time with these people who you enjoy watching on YouTube.
Oh, I love
So
that
yeah,
answer.
I'd
That's
watch it if it's
great.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, if
Okay.
it's
So
that, I'll
yeah,
watch
that's
it.
I
If I
wondered
want it, I'll
because
watch it. Just so these
no,
guys know.
right? Yeah. Same. No, but I think that's a great answer because yeah, like if you're going to do an investigation and you're with a few people and you're in it, if you're not faking but you're having a good time, like as long as you're in the moment, you can enjoy it even if nothing paranormal happens. And then if something paranormal does happen, it's going to catch everybody
Wow.
by surprise.
Yeah.
It's going to be a major thing. It's not going to be like, oh yeah, I saw that. I saw that coming, or oh, that was, build up to, we knew that was going to happen, or I knew that's where they were leading with that. So it would be so raw and so genuine. I think it would be great. And like you said, if they can carry the show with their personalities and stuff, it would change the paranormal investigative world, I think, as far as like presenting the content on YouTube or television. I
I
love that answer.
think
That was so awesome.
I believe you and I both have probably been to supposedly haunted places where little to nothing happens, and we're like,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
is this going to be a thing? And every time you go, we would live that journey through that show. When that
Mm-hmm.
happens, it's going to be, and I shudder to think, because it's also easy to go, well, and I think this is what Ghost Hunters did their the first couple of seasons was, all right, we're going to show you that nothing's haunted for a bunch of episodes, and then something's going to happen, and you're going to believe it
Mm-hmm.
because nothing
Exactly.
happened before, right? We're proving that we're debunkers too. And when
Mm-hmm.
you do that, it opens you up for the opportunity to fake something and really blow the audience away. I hope that
Yeah.
doesn't happen. But when it does, if it's legitimate, it's going to be such a great moment for everybody. I look forward
Agreed.
to something like that. I want that. Absolutely.
Yes, same. I agree completely. And to further that, the downside of these shows that are faking, especially for real places that you can visit yourself, I myself have been a victim of this where I got really hyped up over the South Pittsburgh hospital being so haunted, and I'm about to do an overnight tour with my mom, and I'm terrified because of all the hype in this place. And then we go, and our little ghost hunting team that we're with, that we paid to join, they're faking. They're
You could
clearly
tell?
using, yeah, they were using remotes to set off lights and saying that the ghosts were doing it. And we caught them, and we didn't out them in front of everyone because we're not like that. But for us, it ruined it. It took away the whole experience, and we didn't have
Oh,
the time we were hoping to have. So if you're a viewer and you see your YouTube content and this person goes to this location and you happen to be near that location or be able to go to it, and you go and you have no experience, or worse, you catch someone faking, that takes a piece of you away for your love for the paranormal. It kind of ruins it, and it kind of makes you, you hurt for the idea that you trusted these people with this stuff and oh, nothing
yep.
happened. So there's a lot of there's a lot of detrimental things happening to the paranormal community because of all the faking, and it sucks. So I would love to see a new show that covers the real stuff and admits when there's no real stuff.
Well, I'm on board for promoting something like that and getting behind it 100%.
Awesome. I love it. I have one final question for you. It's going to be probably a deep question, but I would like to know.
Oh, no.
And after that, I'm going to let you plug all your stuff. So,
okay.
What is your overall opinion of the paranormal or lack of understanding of it?
What is my overall opinion?
Yeah, so of the paranormal and the lack of understanding of it.
It's of the paranormal. There's something. I don't know what it is. I don't know why spirits that are just energy sometimes have clothes that they were wearing. That doesn't make sense to me, but I know it's a thing because experiences. Well, one experience of my own and other people's that I trust. I don't know why that is, and that's the part. It's the lack of understanding is frustrating.
Yep.
I get it. We're made up of a great percentage of energy, right? So our energy doesn't. Where's our energy go when our bodies go, right? And our conscious does our conscious stay with our energy? Are we seeing? I have all these questions that everybody else has. Are we seeing an image in time just replaying over and over again?
Right.
Is there intelligent communication? Like I imagine a world where The Others is a thing. Did you ever see The Others?
Oh, yes. I love that movie. I was just talking about that movie, too. I love that idea of us not knowing.
Spoilers.
Right. This is a spoiler for the movie. If you haven't seen the movie, don't listen to this part. But if you have seen the movie, the premise is, are we the ghosts? Or are the ghosts thinking, like, do they know they're ghosts? Or do they think we're ghosts because we're present in their home that they're living in still? So, yeah, that's a great point.
What makes me think about that, because I was just talking to someone about this. There's a Netflix documentary about a man that killed his wife and children. You might have heard of that. And there's, like, police body cams. Like, this is not a ghost show. It's an investigation into this murder.
No, I know what you're talking about, yep.
And the cops are walking through, and there's one point where they hear children giggling. And they even acknowledge it, and they don't know what to make of it, and it just moves on. I think the show just moves on. There's another point where you hear a woman's voice say, "This is our house." And you're like, am I hearing that because they told me that's what I need to listen for, or is that what it says?
Right.
But that gives me The Others feel big time.
Yes, agreed. And the fact that they were killed so traumatically would yield to the fact that they would still be there lingering, trying to get a message through. Yes. Yeah. And it's funny you bring that up because when I saw that, we're actually talking about the Chris Watts. He was the murderer. So when the camera crew went into the house, one of the things I remember being pointed out, because I didn't see it when I initially watched their documentary, I saw it on YouTube Shorts being reacted to. And one of them was the staircase. When they move in, the camera pans across the room and they catch the staircase, and it really, really looks like there is a child sitting on the stairs, peeking through the banister area. Yeah. So this particular... Yeah, and that was a really good one. And this particular person that was showing this clip debunked it. They pointed out how the reflection of this particular banister and some of the other reflective objects in the shot, they slowed it down and they zoomed it in and they showed how it was actually a reflection of the movement.
Matrixing.
Which I thought which I thought was incredibly interesting considering, like you pointed out, they also heard the giggling and the little EVP they caught. Now, I did see someone say that they overlaid sound on the woman's voice and that was debunked, but the giggling and the fact that they acknowledged hearing it in real time was really interesting. That one I don't think has been debunked. So that's crazy.
That documentary wasn't put out to say that there's ghosts haunting that room.
Right. Exactly. They were just covering what happened in the murder. Yeah. It was not,
that's
they
one of the ones I look at
paranormal at all.
Real.
Exactly, same. And the fact that they reacted in real time to what the camera picked up. So I thought that was really interesting. Oh, I love that. I'm so glad we talked about that. So before we go, if you would please tell everyone where they can find you and the name of your show and all of your stuff.
I will, but real quick suggestion, because I've been watching your show, and I love when you do the ones where you're sitting in front of the painting and reacting to things, and you got Annabelle sitting behind you up high. A suggestion. Hopefully people don't, I hate to say that, I hope people don't listen to the show, so this will be good for them. When you do your reactions, to a recording you're playing and you look at the camera or you make a face, do a tight zoom, and then come back out wide and Annabelle has moved slightly.
I love that. That is funny. That would be so much fun. I've actually considered trying to do different camera tricks just for fun, not clearly not to like fool anyone.
Not trying to make people believe that your doll's alive.
Right. And I've had people comment about Annabelle and being afraid of her, so I think that's pretty funny. But no, that's great. I'm actually going to have a friend soon, hopefully, help me with some different stuff, do some tricks, and make the videos a little more engaging. Because, like you said, you want to see the real stuff and the truth, but you also want to be entertained when you're watching something. So as long as you're presenting your entertainment in an entertainment way when it's entertainment, and then when it's truth, making sure people understand, that's awesome. I think that's a great idea. I think people would love that.
And I love what you're doing with the picture frame. They're putting the articles and stuff in the videos. That's awesome. So,
thank you. I wanted to yes, tell me all about you, and then when we're done, I wanted to.
You wanted to say something. You want to go first, or you want me to just tell my stuff first?
I want you to tell your stuff.
Okay, it's your show. Okay, you can find me with my co-host, star of the 3-season run of Rise, Patricia Ray, as my co-host on Believe This. We, like I said, we have these debates without good faith debates without hating each other at the end. You can also find us on Believe This Mondays on the Strictly Business Show with Dr. J. That's on, I'll get you a link to that. So you can put that in there. And we're going to probably do more appearances throughout the week with him just to help him out a little bit. We have fun with him. And I'm on social media as Miami Sixth Man. That's all spelled out, Miami Sixth Man on most things. And yeah, that's really all I got going right now. You know,
that's great.
And I'll me in a nutshell.
No, I love it. I'll make sure all your links are there for everyone to click on and go find. And I just wanted to say thank you so much for coming on my show to talk about the paranormal, even though that's not something your show talks about generally. I love that you can touch on that subject because it's great to reach all the audiences and make sure they're aware of stuff. So thank you so much.
I'm honored. I can't believe you thought enough of me to invite me on. I really appreciate that.
I love what you had to say. I loved our conversation. I am apologizing here to Patricia. I loved being on your show with her. I just felt like she probably wouldn't enjoy some of the things we were going to talk about.
I'm the paranormal guy.
Yes,
exactly. I'm the guy with the experience.
And I love her stance and her opinions, and I love that she has that dynamic for your show, but I didn't want her to be uncomfortable with the things we brought up here. So
Understandable.
So thank you so much. And I'm going to end this now. And I did want to tell you, thank you for commenting on the frame, because I've been coming up with this idea for like 5 months. I've been trying to come up with something I could do on YouTube that wasn't me talking to the camera, because I'm not very good at that. So I just did this, and I just put up my, first few videos with it. And then I started watching this new show on Netflix where they do the same thing. So I thought, at least I had a good idea, because if they're using it on this like big ass show on Netflix.
Every time I think I've come up with something original, someone else has already done it.
Mm-hmm. That's that collective conscious thing, I think, where they say everyone's connected and they don't know it. I think that's what that is.
Thank you again to Chris. I so appreciate you taking the time out of your day to sit and talk over these things with me. I was so excited to get your thoughts and opinions in the strange and twisted world of the Warrens, and I had a blast. Thank you again so much. Now, a couple announcements. I will be back to telling some stories next week. I will finish and release the Lindley Street haunting next week, and the following week will be The Devil in the Courtroom. And that means I'm finally back on track and caught up. And then we'll do some more interviews and check on Nesper and some more rumors coming out since they've been touring with their haunted objects. Thank you all so much for listening. You can find me on all social medias. Just search Truth or Demons Podcast, or if you'd like, you can email me directly. Just email truthordemonspodcast@gmail.com. If you enjoyed the episode, please like, follow, and/or subscribe, and leave me a comment down below, or on Spotify if you like. Don't forget to check out the show notes and below for links to everything mentioned in the episode, and all my logo designers and my sound guy. Thanks for listening. Until next time.